Hey, hello, this is Moon Griffon, the Moon Griffon Show, our podcast, of course. Make sure you join us on our radio program Monday through Friday from 9 to 12 Central Time. It is the Moon Griffon Show. You go to moongriffon.com, listen live. If you don't live in the state of Louisiana, in the state, you can check out our map. You can drive all over the state and pick us up just about in every inch of Louisiana. But today we're doing a podcast, it's a national podcast, and it's an honor, with Title 42 getting ready to end at the border. And we got big problems coming. I got an expert, Mr. Simon Hankinson, Senior Research Fellowship of the Heritage Foundation, and of course, with talking border security. Mr. Simon, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing fine. Great to be with you.
Man, it is an honor to have you on here. All right, Simon, let's take it from the start because what's happening at the border is not by accident. It's by design. You can't allow what's happening at the border, but boy, I tell you what, this thing could really, really get bad and ugly quick and really soon. And what I want you to explain to people, first of all, is about Title 42, what's in place, what's getting ready to be removed. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what may happen. So talk a little bit about exactly what this has been doing, if it's been doing anything. Apparently, it's been stopping some people.
Well, yeah, I mean, to go back to the beginning, it's Title 8 covers immigration. Title 42 covers public health. And the CDC, back when COVID got going in March of 2020, decided that the border authorities could keep anybody out on the basis that they might be coming with COVID. And the advantage of Title 42 is that someone can be expelled from the country without being able to just hop into the asylum system, which, as some of your listeners probably know, is clogged up to the point of about 2 million cases, and decades into the future. So, over the past 3 years, Title 42 has been used for a little over 40% of people who show up illegally at the border. So, we're talking about 1 million people in 2021, 1 million people in 2022, and about 500,000 so far in 2023 have been expelled under Title 42.
Wow. So this is a gigantic move. Now, my question, look, we've had problems at the border. I'm 61 years old. Seems like we've had a problem since before I was born. We've had problems because nothing's been enforced. I kind of get a little frustrated when I see lawmakers and the president of the United States always talking about how we got problems at the border. We need to do something. Well, they're the lawmakers. They're the ones that can do something about it, and nothing's ever done. In this case, what's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen when this dies?
Well, I mean, let's just be clear that right now things are pretty simple, right? It's not like everything's great under control and all of a sudden Title 42 goes away and then, it all goes to hell in a handbasket. Right now, we're looking at 200,000 odd people showing up illegally at the border, and about half them getting in. We've had an estimated about 4 million people show up since President Biden took office. Well over 1.5 million so-called gotaways. In other words, people who snuck in. Somebody recorded them coming in some way, maybe through a camera, maybe through observation, but they had no way of knowing who they were. So things are really bad now. The thing with when Title 42 goes is I compare it to you fire the bouncer at the nightclub. Mm-hmm. So you go from having at least some control to none. And there are estimates of up to more than 500,000 people waiting on the other side of the Mexican border for this opportunity to come in because they know that they will be able to claim asylum, and a lot of them will be able to be, even though they have no case in the long run and will eventually be denied, they'll be able to get in the system, come in, work, and enjoy the benefits of being legal until the end of their case.
Well, if you get pregnant, you can become a citizen real quick, can't you?
Well, your kid becomes a citizen. Yeah. It takes a lot longer for the parents. But, as soon as people are in, they find ways to sort of lay down roots, and it becomes much, much harder to enforce the rules, even if the judge eventually decides that they're not genuine asylees, that they're just here looking for a job. And that's really the problem. Is the law says that people who arrive illegally are supposed to be detained until their cases can be heard. We want people to have a chance to tell us why they ought to be protected against torture, or they should be able to claim asylum. But we know from the data that we have, DHS is the government's own data, about 8.5, 9 out of 10 of people who say they're going to claim asylum don't end up getting it because they either don't qualify or they don't bother to finish the process. So to let those people in and let them, carry out that whole process inside the country is a huge mistake, but it's one that unfortunately this government is making on purpose today.
Well, his name is Simon Hankinson with the Heritage Foundation. I was getting ready to say that. When I look at this as it by design. I don't care what anybody says. None of this is happening to the United States of America as an accidental. Oh, we messed up with the laws. It's totally by design. Am I wrong? Is that too harsh of a statement?
No, I really don't think it is. I mean, if you look at the histories and the views, the public views of the people who are running the Biden administration's immigration policy, they genuinely believe that we shouldn't be enforcing these laws, that everybody has a right to apply for asylum. Many of them believe in the right to migrate from any country to wherever you want to go. And so I think it is on purpose. I think I guess the biggest problem for me, I can understand someone disagreeing with me and thinking there should be, 10 times as much immigration when I think the current numbers are about right. The problem is they're not enforcing the laws that are on the books. And, if we have a country where Congress passes laws and the executive gets to decide which of those laws they're going to enforce and which they're not, then, we've really ceased to become a democracy with three co-equal branches and checks and balances. And we've become kind of, a tyranny of the executive branch. I don't think that's what anybody on either side wants to come out of this.
Yeah, when you look at this, the big question after everything you said is why? Why would you want to allow people to come across legally? I'm all for it. I have no problem with it, none whatsoever. But why? Because we're watching the fentanyl, we're watching the drugs, we're watching the sex abuse, we're watching people that get hurt on this side of the border, our side. We're watching people get killed. We're watching land destroyed. Now, I'm not saying all these people are doing this, but they got enough of them that's hurting us. So my question to you, when it comes to these, quote, politicians, elected officials, why? Why would you want this to happen in the United States of America?
I ask myself that every day. I spent 23 years as a consular officer with the government. About half of that time, I was enforcing immigration law. I was helping people who qualified to get benefits. And I was stopping people who were not qualified, either because they were going to work illegally or had criminal records or maybe terrorist connections, from getting into the country. And I asked myself, why is it that I worked for 5 different presidents, I think 3 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and up until the last couple of years, they all agreed that even if they didn't like the law the way it was written, they had to at least try to enforce it to the best of their ability. All of a sudden, that went out the window in 2021. I think part of it is, as I said before, there's ideology. There are people who just genuinely think that borders are bad and that we don't have the right to keep anybody out under any circumstances. There's people who think that this is kind of a long-term game, that somehow that the people on the left think that all immigrants are always going to vote for them. They're going to vote for the Democratic Party in perpetuity, and that somehow this is like a really long strategic plan. I find that one a little harder to swallow, only because if you look at how Hispanic Americans are voting and which way they're trending, they are often naturally socially conservative people. They believe in free enterprise and business and family values, and some of them are going to vote Republican, and that's showing in each election. So, I think that you can't rule out incompetence too. I mean, ideology is a big thing, but this is the gang that couldn't shoot straight. I've never seen such mismanagement in my entire career as I'm watching every single day.
Let me ask you, and I don't have to tell you what I'm going to tell you. You'll know. Okay, everything now is money. Everybody sells their soul to the devil for money. They do. I'm sorry. I wish I could say we didn't, but we do. Is that some kind of money factor in this, that some elected official, some business guy is making a lot of money because we're allowing these people to come through? I hate to say money because it kind of makes me mad as hell to believe it was some kind of money deal for these lawmakers to keep looking the other way. But let's just be blunt, Simon. We're looking the other way. This is designed, but designed for what? That's why I asked the question on why. Somebody making a bunch of money on a deal like this?
Well, of course, someone always makes money on both sides of the deal. In this case, you've got some non-governmental organizations and charities who are making literally billions of dollars. Now, they call themselves nonprofit, but if you look at how much they pay their managers and their contractors, the presidents of these charities are making $300,000-$400,000 a year or more, and the salaries that they're paying are pretty good. And they're making money from the federal government through FEMA grants, through DHS, to take illegal aliens off the border, shelter them, house them, buy them bus tickets, plane tickets, social services. And yeah, that's a lucrative market for them. And if you look at a report that a colleague of mine just came out with about the nonprofit aid sector, 99% of those people are voting for the Democrats.
Sure,
and so I can see there's a little bit of a party political connection there. And there are definitely, the business community is not united on immigration. You've got people who are sort of traditional conservatives like me who say, look, the system ought to be fair. Mm-hmm. We have laws. If Congress wants more workers, they can vote for programs that let in more workers, mm-hmm. and then we will accept it. But what you can't do is bring them in through the back door or bring them in illegally, like these poor kids who they keep finding working in chicken plants and McDonald's in the middle of the night that came in as unaccompanied minors. So, yeah, I'm sure that there are some business interests that are profiting from cheaper labor. It's a mix of motivations.
Yeah, but it's illegal. And we supposed to be a country of laws. I know if the other day, I hate to admit this, but I was doing 67 in a 55 and they stopped me, put me off the side of the road, gave me a ticket. My fine was $200. I paid it. Okay.
Ouch.
These I know it hurt. That's the first ticket I had. I can't tell you last time I had a ticket. It goes along with the other 25 I got, but that's beside the point, Tom. Another story. But my point being is I broke the law. I paid a price. They got people breaking the law and they're not paying a price. That to me is dangerous in what we're doing in the United States of America. We're not even talking about the fentanyl. We're not talking about the drugs that's killing people. I always say a lot of times on my radio program, I say, if these elected officials, families were in danger, if one of their, and I hate to say it this way, I don't want this to happen, understand, one of their kids get raped, one of their kids get killed, one of their kids get mugged, one of their kids get shot. And I know that's not because I don't want you to stop me and say, Moon, everybody's not doing it. I'm agreeing with that. But every time one comes across that does do this, or we send them back and they come over 4 or 5 times, get caught, keep sending them back and forth. That's not a policy. That's a screwed up country. And I think that's where we are with this border. It's almost scary to watch what's happening and what really could happen with Title 42 going away with the health provisions.
I mean, what you got to think about is, let's say the cops that stopped you, they had only so many cars going by at the time and only so many were going over the speed limit. What if they had hundreds and hundreds of cars going by and they're all going 100 miles an hour? They can't stop them all.
No.
They're going to have to pick one or two. If you look what's happening at the border, when I issue a visa overseas, I've got the guy, I've got his fingerprints, I've got his picture, I have some kind of history. Mm-hmm. I may be able to tell if that guy has a criminal record, but at least I know what his name is because I've got some kind of government issued document.
Sure.
The people coming in, and I've been down to the border, I've seen it. They throw away their passport, they throw away their documents. They come in and the guy says, "Who are you?" And then they take their fingerprints and their picture, they give them a name, they give them a date of birth. So essentially they start from scratch. Wow. We have absolutely no idea who they are. Now, let's just say that the percentage of criminals among people coming in illegally is the same as it is in the native population. 1 out of 100,000 murders and 1 out of 10,000 rapists. I don't know exactly what it is. I looked it up once. So just add up, take 5 million people that have come in since 2021 illegally and either been paroled in or let go or gotaways, and then figure out how many of those are menaces, dangers to society. And then just look at your newspapers. Mm-hmm. There was that awful case in Texas where a guy who had been deported 5 times back to Mexico, had no business being in the United States, murders a family of neighbors.
But just think if you were the parent of that kid, but what are these lawmakers? What if it was a kid of one of these lawmakers? You know what I'm saying? But it's not, because they don't live there in Washington, D.C. They live way up there. They're protected.
Well, it's the same thing with big cities. We have cities all over the country. I mean, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, where the prosecutors have decided they don't want to prosecute what they call minor crimes. So shoplifting up to $1,000, vagrancy, assault, all kinds of crimes that years ago used to be considered serious enough that you would at least prosecute them. Now they don't even bother. But what happens? The quality of life for all of us who are law-abiding goes down. And I think immigration is the same. If we have rules and we don't enforce them, then eventually we get overtaken by chaos.
Yeah, but I tell you what, in this day and time, especially since COVID, it looks like chaos everywhere you turn. The border, our debt, our financial situation. I think the climate thing is the biggest lie I've ever seen, but that's another story for somebody else. And I just look at everything's almost going crazy in our country, and we need some stability. And I don't care if you or anybody else like President Trump, he had a good goal of protecting the border, and I think that's why he got elected, because people wanted to stop this. As soon as he was gone, they really opened that thing up. And I'm just so disappointed and disheartened sometimes when I see what can happen at this border. And if these people are just allowed to keep coming and coming and coming, they're going to, because they're coming from a hellhole. But the bottom line is we're going to become a hellhole if we don't get back to being a country of laws. We got to have laws that protect our people. The border policy now has nothing to do with protecting people.
And I completely agree. It's a reckless and it's a willful abandonment of duty by the president, by Mayorkas, by our border czar, Vice President Harris. They've sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution. And under the Constitution, we have a Congress that passes laws, and those laws are just not being enforced. They're paroling people in who they have absolutely no business paroling in, and they're choosing not to enforce immigration law. And I think, as you said, that's the dereliction of duty, and it's costing us all.
How about the head of the Biden's team that heads up Homeland Security, acting like everything's okay at the border? The comments they make, it's almost like they don't care, because the media's not going to show what's going on anyway. I've always said, take the media and go in the inner cities and go see what happens on day after day after day. And it's become acceptable. The borders are going to become acceptable because we're not fighting back to stop some of the crazy stuff. Somebody asked me the other day on my radio program, when you build a fence at your house, are you trying to keep people out? And I told them, not me. They said, what are you doing? I said, I'm trying to protect my family. I think the border protection is to protect America, to protect our families and kids and wives and loved ones, and to grow the country to be a great country. It's not to keep people out, because there is a way in. There's a way to come in my gated community. If I don't have one, but if I had a gated home, there's a way to come in, and you're welcome as long as you come in the proper way. If you come in through the front door and come and see me, that's fine. But if you jump the back fence because you're trying to do something, then I have a right to defend myself. The borders were to protect our people. If you wanted to come in, there's ways to come in the United States, and you talked about them a little bit earlier. There's ways to come in legally. You're okay with that, and so am I.
I agree. And I always take it down to the local example. You have people who they're not thinking through their philosophy, and they're being hypocritical about it. They say, well, of course we can't enforce border laws because, people want to go where they want to go, and it's mean to keep them out. But if I were to go around my neighborhood where people have the signs that say no human being is illegal, and I were to roll up with a van full of people and say, hey, these are your 12. They just arrived last night. These 2 guys are Russians. These 3, I think, are Venezuelan. Mm-hmm. This one has a heart condition. This one here needs, special needs. And they're going to live in your basement until their asylum cases are heard, which might be, 5, 10, 15, really not sure how many years. Until that time, you got to look after them. Do you think those people would say, sure, yeah, they're going to live in my basement? Maybe there might be 1 in 1,000 who's a better man than you and me. But most people would say, no, this is my house. And
you'll protect your family.
The police.
Yeah, when you look at it, I know that Ron DeSantis did it, Governor DeSantis did it. And I think Governor Abbott did it out of Texas. They actually took some illegals and sent it to Martha's Vineyard and some other places. And I noticed they got them the hell out of there real quick because of just what you said. So they had an opportunity to keep them. They didn't open their doors. I wonder why. Because they didn't know them. And I got my producer in my house right now. If I didn't know him, I wouldn't have let him in my house. I just saying, you got to protect who you are and what you have. It's not to keep people out. I want people to come to my house, just come the proper way. That's all I'm saying. I'm not, they call you racist and bigots. None of that's true. I'm trying to protect my family. If you get in my house, Simon, I got a 357 and a couple other things for you. And by the way, it's the only time I would shoot somebody, but if you try to hurt my family, I would protect them.
And I'm sure you're a generous guy, and when you throw a party, you're going to invite lots of people. But if you invite 100 people and another 500 show up, you're going to say, look, I'm really sorry. I don't have room and I didn't invite you.
Yeah.
Well, I think countries have a right to say that. We are a generous country. We have a cap on refugees of 125,000. We only managed to let in 25,000 last year because they were so busy dealing with the mess they made on the border. But, we let in 800,000, 850,000 legal immigrants a year. We accept about a half of the people who come on non-immigrant visas. A good percentage of people stay and go through some kind of process. So it's not like we're not welcoming to visitors and we're not welcoming to immigrants. We are, and it's not like if you are against totally illegal immigration, mass illegal immigration, that you don't like immigrants as individuals. It's not a personal thing.
No.
In the same way that you might like everybody in your neighborhood, you just don't necessarily want them living in your basement.
Well, I don't know if I like everybody in the neighborhood, but I'm sure some of them don't like me, but that's okay. His name is Simon Hankinson. Hey, Simon, thank you so much, brother. God bless. Thank you for the very informative information. Try to bring you back on a radio program as well. You've been very informative, and I appreciate that.
I'd love that. Thanks so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, folks, let's go wrap it up. Don't forget to subscribe. Moon Griffon, please subscribe. We appreciate it if you do. There's a lot of great information to come out of the Moon Griffon podcast. You need to spread it with a lot of people. God bless. See you next time.